Of Imperator, brothers and sisters. Today we're talking about Inquisitorial factions. As you guys know, Dark Heresy is coming very soon, so I've chosen a selection of the 3 most prominent Puritan factions, as well as some of my favorite radical factions to kind of prepare you for what you might be encountering out there when Dark Heresy lands. Let's get started. Okay, the first faction we're going to talk about is Monodominant. Monodominant is what everyone imagines when they picture an Inquisitor. It's the stereotypical Inquisitorial type. They're scary, they're intolerant, and they are utterly committed to stamping out any deviation in form or thought. They persecute without any hesitation the 3 standard boogeymen of the Imperium: the alien, the mutant, and the heretic. Unsurprisingly, these tend to be the most heavy-handed type of Inquisitor. They are the ones that will push the button on an exterminatus without a hesitation if there's any chance whatsoever of a scrap of heresy being left unburned. If it helps those coming over from the Space Marine side of things, if you were to imagine a Black Templar, they would be a monodominant Inquisitor. It's entirely their method and their way. Now, monodominant Inquisitors do tend to lack one trait that most other Inquisitors do prize: secrecy. This doesn't mean, of course, they don't have their sources, they don't have files, that they don't see the value of secrecy. It's just that they want results now, and they will take the most direct, punch to the face manner of getting those results that they can possibly find. They will not work together with other parts of the Imperium. They will not seek to find cooperation, to find harmony. No, they come in, they take control, they stamp out the heresy, they get out. That is a monodominant Inquisitor. It is for these reasons that the monodominant school of thought in the Inquisition tends to be the dominant one. Most Inquisitors, especially those in command, tend to be monodominant because they have no dirty secrets. There are no skeletons in their closet. They have been purging and burning and murdering since they were about this big. A monodominant Inquisitor is no one to fool around with, and the older they get, the more staunch and determined they get. Not for them the temptations of the tools of chaos. Not for them the easy way of finding peace or a middle ground. No, they will go out to their very last day burning, purging, purifying. Amalathian is next. Amalathians are the law and order type of Puritan. They believe that the Emperor has a plan, and that plan can only be seen through to the end by maintaining the status quo. It doesn't matter how much suffering there is. It doesn't matter how uncomfortable things are, how dark they seem. The Emperor has a plan, maintain the status quo, everything's good. Amalathians strictly support the Lex Imperialis, and they will go to great lengths to ensure that they work smoothly with whatever imperial institution they happen to be working alongside. They will go to any length to make sure that everything is functioning smoothly. Again, you got to keep that status quo if you're an Amalathian. No grit in the cogs. Grind that upstart, that problem, that malefactor, grind them into the dirt. Amalathians also work particularly well with the Adeptus Arbites. Fans of the Eisenhorn series written by that monster Dan Abnett will remember that one of the earliest additions to his permanent retinue was an Adeptus Arbites. In contrast to the Monodominants, who themselves do not care for secrecy, Amalathians love secrets. To this end, they are constantly embedding their agents throughout the imperial bureaucracy. This allows them access to huge reams of data that they might not otherwise get. Again, part of playing nice is that people are going to be more accepting and people are going to be more trusting. Amalathians know that, and they use it to great effect. Information is power, my friends. Guard it well. Thorian Inquisitors are the ones we're going to talk about next. They are the most interested in pursuing manifestations of divine will and miracles. They are named after the great Inquisitor Sebastian Thor. He was the one who purged the ecclesiarchy during the Age of Apostasy, when differing views and schisms from the imperial creed were rampant. He believed that he was being spoken to directly by the Emperor, and it led him to uncover cell after cell of heretic from the high to the low. Now, they wouldn't appreciate this comparison, but Thorians are actually quite similar to a radical faction called Istvaanians. Thorians believe the place where you're most likely to find manifestations of the Emperor's touch, divine will, are places where humanity is being tested, put through the forges of battle. So there you will find them often on the fringes of the Imperium, places where mortal armies are contesting each other, places where there is no logical hope. The only possible chance for survival is divine intervention. That is where a Thorian Inquisitor looks for signs of the Emperor's great works. Now, naturally, it is actually quite difficult to divine what is divine will and what is just luck, happenstance, chance. Thorian Inquisitors therefore have to spend years upon years in any one place finding out, was this incident due to a witch that was passed over by the black ships? Was this just a lucky individual? Was this actually heresy? What was going on here? And it can take them, again, a great amount of time to find out what is really and truly miraculous. However, again, when they do find those agents, those strange numinous beings touched directly by the Emperor, it's all worth it. That is a Thorian. Okay, now we're going to come to the radicals, and we're going to start the radicals with a faction. Now, hey, can you keep a secret? You can? Great. Fantastic. I have a school of radical thought that truly appeals to me. It is the Oblationists. It was deeply amusing to me to find out that I did have a school of Inquisitorial faction that I was most drawn to. I didn't think I had a strong opinion when I started the research for this until I read about the Oblationists. And even to here, I don't think they should be classified as radical at all. I think they are actually Puritans. Isn't that the way? Isn't that how a radical Inquisitor always feels? It's not me that's radical. It's the rest of the galaxy that's wrong. Here's the reason why I think that they actually are Puritans, that they actually are clean. Here's the thing. Here's why, to me, I think they seem like Puritans, because they are driven. They are wildly intolerant. There is no stauncher advocate for the perfection of the Emperor and the right of the Imperium than an Oblationist. The difference is this. They embrace using the tools of chaos against chaos. They fight, unrelentingly fight, fire with fire. Use of cursed relics, of chaos sorcery is strictly forbidden to members of the Inquisition, but even the most die-hard Monodominant will not deny the power of these tools. Oblationists just go one step further. They go from denial to use. Oblationists, again, due to this dangerous heretical nature. Heretical, again, I say only in terms of how you view us. You view us, you Puritans. To become a member of the Oblation faction of the Inquisition, you swear an oath of oblation, directly acolyte to master, to follow these tenets, to fear not using the tool, and also to sacrifice your purity for the greater good of the Imperium. You willingly throw away your purity. Your chance for redemption is burned in this crucible. This is why members of the Oblationist sect will often use tools of chaos that will definitely damn them for sure. They even go so far as to subject themselves to demon hosting. Yes, my friends, that's right. For those who've been watching this channel for a while, you'll remember a while back, I did an Under Fire segment on the Space Marine chapter, The Exorcists. And this is the exact same thing they did. I did not realize at the time when I was doing the research that the Inquisitors who helped the Exorcists are Oblationists. Of course they are. It's genius. What tool is the most powerful and effective against chaos? Space Marines. What tool can withstand the rigors of demon hosting better than any other to use those cursed tools? Space Marines, of course. The Inquisitors of the Oblationist faction use these tools and teach the Space Marines too. I love it. I love it. Again, I have to stress this. Why Oblationists should be Puritans is because they are pure. This is not for personal power. This is not succumbing to temptation. This is willingly, again, sacrificing the self, sacrificing everything, sacrificing your very soul or the Imperium. They will spare no minion of chaos. They will go forth and they will hunt down every possible scrap of heresy, just like a monodominant, until they burn. And when they burn forever, my friends, and they know it. There will be no second chances. They are damned. They do it for the Emperor. Okay, the next radical faction is Xeno-Hybris. Members of the Xeno-Hybris Inquisitorial faction, radical faction, feel that aliens, the Xenos, have much to teach us. We can learn a great deal by studying their ruins, but also by working side by side with them. This is why you'll often find members of the Xeno-Hybris Inquisitorial faction amongst the Ordo Xenos, although there are Ordo Malleus and Ordo Hereticus adherents to this belief too. They will often also have, again, Kroot, for example, or other kinds of Xenos in their retinues. They can even, again, the funny thing about the Inquisition, they are given tacit approval. There are certain things, they are allowed to bring these Xenos into even inquisitorial conclaves. It is not without precedence. So, even as staunch and ferocious and unrelenting as the Inquisition wants to seem, is a certain amount of leeway. Xeno-Hybris Inquisitors have two main goals. One, as I mentioned before, is the searching through of Xenos ruins to find esoteric lore, tools left behind, because every Xenos race, whether living or dead, has had to deal with chaos at some stage or another, and the tools they left behind may help humanity in its great struggle. The second part of Xeno-Hybris is the recovery of lost Xenotech, and this puts them into direct conflict with the Ecclesiarchy and with the Adeptus Mechanicus. Both of these institutions feel that Xenos tech is not to be fooled with. So an Inquisitor of the Xeno-Hybris radical faction must step very carefully lest they fall afoul of the Ecclesiarchy and the Adeptus Mechanicus. It's very tricky work. Okay, the next faction is a very peculiar one. It is Seculos Attendous. Seculos Attendous is a relatively young faction by any standard. However, the funny thing is, they come around to one of the really important beliefs the Emperor had during the Great Crusade, that religion is a cancer and must be stamped out. The Emperor himself is on the record in multiple sources for saying that he felt blind faith was much too dangerous a tool. It was too easily led astray, right? And we've seen that again and again and again in all these times when ecclesiarchs have fallen prey to the temptations of chaos, whether it was personal fear, whether it was a lust for sensation, a desire for knowledge, wrath itself. You know, it's so easy for that ecclesiarch out there purging the alien, the mutant, and the heretic to say, I should go farther. I should hate more. I should embrace this rage. I should bathe in blood. I should worship. Wait. Right? That's what happens. This faction also is one that truly prizes secrecy because it is impossible, even for a body as powerful as the Inquisition. It would take literally the entire Inquisition aligned behind this faction to have any hope whatsoever counting the ecclesiarchy, and even then, there is no guarantee of success. So instead, Seculos Attendous Inquisitors will work quietly behind the scenes, especially on newly found worlds or frontier worlds where they can sow the seeds of doubt, where they can undermine the ecclesiarchy and from the outside in start changing the Imperium, start weakening the hold of the ecclesiarchy to where it won't take the full might of the Inquisition, to where the ecclesiarchy itself is revealed for the dangerous, dangerous thing it is. Okay, the next faction is Xanthism. Now here I'm going to throw in a little quote from one of our brothers in the Brothers of Athicus, Chaplain Hensler. I'm the kind of guy who thinks efficiency is worth a little risk. But I'm wrong more often than I care to admit. Xanthists have a very similar take to the Oblationists, but they don't go so far as to use that secrecy, as to purposely burn their soul to fight the Emperor. They do, however, use the tools of the enemy against them. But this is, again, I really feel, I have to say this again, I feel the Oblationists are the better faction here. The Xanthists are doing this, again, they're using the tools as a temptation. They have to be very careful. They are viewed as radical. They are more tolerated, certainly, than Oblationists. They're not demon hosting, at least not out where everyone can see them doing it. Again, in the Eisenhorn books, you will find members of the Xanthite Inquisitorial faction, and you see what happens to them when they start tampering with demon hosts, right? Now, Xanthites have a particular interest in those who have already fallen to chaos. They use them as proxies, essentially, for knowledge, for what they already know, how they fell, what they were exposed to before they fell, and the lessons that can be drawn from that. Xanthites love to interrogate a heretic, not just because they're sadists, which most of them are, but because of what they can learn from the fallen. This interrogation, Xanthites believe, allows a heretic to do one final service to the Emperor. Now, before I mention that a Black Templar is a kind of monodominant, I would say, and probably those Dark Angel players out there are going to hate me for this, but I would say the Dark Angels, as a Space Marine chapter, are most similar in thought to the Xanthites, right? The Dark Angels, too, use all kinds of esoteric, forbidden technology to achieve their goals. Now, before we had Seculos Attendous, right? Though they were the ones who spurned the Ecclesiarch, who felt the Ecclesiarch was dangerous. Xanthites are the other way. They think that fallen ecclesiarchs, or ecclesiarchs whose views and beliefs deviate from the imperial creed, are useful, and they will go to great lengths to secretly recruit these deviant clerics and put them to good use, teaching them forbidden rites, evil prayers that can be used to bind and to harness demons. And we're back at demon hosting again. Did they ever learn? Okay, next up is the Occularians. Occularians, I have to admit, I have a hard time understanding the Occularians. This is a sect who believes that it is possible to safely and usefully divine the future, right? So they put great stock into psychers with divinatory talents, to the Emperor's Tarot, to all these kind of tools that one might use to get glimpses of the future, to thereby navigate safely from point to point. I will say this, even the Emperor believed in the power of divination. He believed it was possible to see the paths laid out before you. But at the same time, the Emperor freely admitted in the Master of Mankind that there was no sure way to know the path from one point to the next, right? He has a great segment, again, in that Master of Mankind book, where the Emperor is talking to one of his custodies, Ra, and he's saying to Ra that even though I know that I need to get to over there, to that wall, I don't know the path. Should I take a boat? Should I take a car? Can I trust the ground? Will I meet a friend along the way? Will that friend betray me? Will a rock twist under my foot and hurt my ankle? Like, there's so much that you can't know that honestly, even having some foresight over the future is almost as much as a handicap as it is a blessing. Of course, the Occularians don't see it that way. Now, there are Occularians, of course, who realize this, who realize the dangers inherent in their methods, and so they restrict themselves. They restrict themselves to small nudges here and there to try and be the pebble that starts the avalanche. Funny thing is, and I've mentioned this a couple different times, a lot of radical factions are tolerated more or less than most. The Occularians certainly fall into that category. Actually, even Monodominants from time to time will call upon Occularian Inquisitors to get a chance, to get a glimpse of the future. Sometimes even a Monodominant needs a little help. Oh boy, here we come. The next faction, Istvanism. Even the name of this faction is pretty triggering, isn't it? I gotta admit, this is one of the most obtuse approaches in the Inquisition in my mind. Rather than try to maintain the Imperium as an Amalathian or an Occularian might, they try to fix the Empire by tearing it down. I mean, they're quite similar to the Recongregators, who didn't make it into the full list, but they are very, very similar in their thinking to how the Recongregators work. But again, their methods are so counterintuitive. Build it up by tearing it down? Even too, they have some similarities to the Thorians. They believe that only in the fires of battle, the crucible of war, can humanity's true spirit and true qualities be revealed. However, for them, there's no relief. There's no emperor, there's no divine will, right? In anything they're doing, it's just fight, 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 be strong, be strong, be strong, be strong. There's no chance, right? There's no emperor's going to help us. There's no status quo to maintain. Fight until you die. To an Istvaanian, peace is an open doorway to stagnation, decay, and death. And here's where it gets really twisted up. Istvaanians then will go through the galaxy. They're looking for corrupt governors. They're looking for complacent populaces. They're looking even for an orc war or some kind of secret like Drukhari doing slave runs or something like that. And they will actually go so far as to help the Drukhari predate upon colonies, to hide that orc war and let it burgeon and grow and become replete and powerful, so that it might then go on to test the Imperium. Really? Perhaps unsurprisingly, this puts the Istvaanians at odds with literally every other organ of the Imperium, and they must therefore work in total secrecy because they are causing so much trouble, constantly causing trouble. You could never trust an Istvaanian with a plan, because they would do anything they could to make sure the plan was as difficult to fulfill as possible. As Pyrrhic a victory as possible is what they always want. They do, of course, want victory, but they want a Pyrrhic victory every single time, right? We've just barely squeaked by rather than stomping on whatever enemy you're facing. I really struggle with Istvaanians. I do. This is the last radical faction I'm going to go into great detail on, and it is one I'm sure that Brother Fergu, I know you're out there, Brother Fergu is going to love this one. It is the Horusians. Talk about triggering names. This is one of the wildest, given all the strife and struggle and misery and blighting of their future that the Imperium has suffered as a result of HORUS. I can't imagine this thinking. It's so wrong-headed to me. Ironically, the seeds of the Horusian sect were sown at the end of the Great Heresy from the Remembrancers themselves, those who most closely chronicled and worked together with the Space Marine legions, as they were then, to see firsthand everything going wrong. This is where the Horusian sect comes from. So, as I was saying, Fergu's going to love this one, but Horusians believe that HORUS essentially did, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, HORUS did nothing wrong, is their belief. They actually believe that had HORUS not been stopped by his brother Primarchs, he would have achieved true mastery over chaos. Essentially, that he would have brought forth, as he claimed to have been doing, a stronger empire. No obfuscation, no games, power, pure, unrefined power with humanity at the top and everything else turned to ash on the bottom, all through embracing the power of chaos, total mastery of the four gods of chaos. As if that weren't heretical enough, they go even farther. They believe now that in the absence of HORUS, and again, the last three books of the Siege of Terra, the End and the Death, right? Those three books kind of bear out how this thinking came about. They believe now the Emperor is the only one strong enough to master chaos, and thus the Emperor must leave the Golden Throne, either under his own power or through a specially bred vessel. Again, that's where all these Star Child rumors keep cropping up. Horusians believe that the Emperor should leave his broken form and enter a fresh vessel and manifest the power of chaos as he so nearly did at the end of the Siege of Terra. And he should stride forth as essentially a fifth god of chaos, a true master of mankind. Blink, blink, blink. What? There is an excellent book called Black Legion by Aaron Dembski Bowden, one of my absolute favorite Black Library authors, who goes through and reveals where this came from. Who exactly? I'm going to say a name, Moriana. Moriana is the seeds of the Horusian sect that plagues the Imperium to this day. As strongly as I believe the Oblationists are Puritan, I believe the Horusians are the most traitorous faction in the entire Inquisition, and possibly even in the Imperium itself. I really believe that the Inquisition needs to stamp out the Horusians root and stem if they are to have any hope whatsoever of maintaining the Imperium. These guys are dangerous. Okay, we come now to the Honourable Mentions section. Here I'm going to throw in 3 factions that I thought were interesting, but probably didn't deserve to make it into the really important list, basically. They are as follows. Ordo Originatus. They're obsessed with understanding and revealing the modern origins of the Inquisition. For perhaps an unsurprising twist entirely, they are opposed by the Ordo Obscurus, who seeks to obscure the foundings of the Inquisition. Again, if you've been paying attention, for example, that Horusian sect of the Inquisition that I mentioned was one of the very, very founding sects of the Inquisition. Thus, it's no surprise that while there's a group that wants to know where the Inquisition came from, there's another group pushing back saying, no, you don't. No, you don't. You don't want to see who's behind that curtain. You really don't. The next up is Polypsychana, and these guys, again, sort of stumbled onto the Emperor's plan. They believe that humanity needs to become a fully psychic race in order to achieve their real ascension. To this end, they will actually go around in total secret and identify psychers before the black ships find them. And they do still want these psychers to go on the black ship. They're pure after a fashion, but they want those psychers before they get on the black ships to be as strong as possible. And here's where we get into real trouble. Here is where, as if it weren't obvious enough, where we get into real trouble, they actually go to the point of breeding psychers, eugenetically breeding psychers, giving them gene therapy, giving them drugs, making them as powerful as possible to pump them up before they go on the black ships for formal training. This has an obvious downside, right? If you have a bunch of psychers on a planet who are not yet trained, who are not yet leashed to the Golden Throne as astropaths, as navigators, as battle psychers, as whatever, you are absolutely laying the groundwork for demonic possession, where basically a demon says, oh, here's a really nice doorway directly into the material realm. I'm going to step through that, and pop goes the psyker, and out comes the demonic incursion en masse. This is absolutely a terrible idea. Polypsychanists, don't do that. Now, I mentioned recongregationism a little bit before when we were talking about the Istvaanians. They believe that, and they're totally opposite to the Amalathians, Amalathian Puritan sect. They're totally opposite. They believe the status quo is stagnation and that change is desirable. They don't go as far as the Istvaanians, right? They don't feel that we need to be constantly in a Pyrrhic victory situation, but they think that we need turmoil and change to bring out the best of humanity. Again, I think this is sympathetic. I think I can kind of see their point. But again, change is dangerous. Change, for change's sake, opens the way to instability and to Tzeentch. All right, friends, that's it. As always, the like, the share, the hype, the subscribe are the dark currencies of this age in which we find ourselves. If you would like to help me out, you can do any one of those 4. In particular, hype the video, please. In the first week, YouTube goes through and counts up those hypes for a leaderboard for videos that did well. If you can help by hyping me, that's what you do by going to the comments and hitting the hype button. It would really, really help me out and I'd appreciate it. All right. Thank you so much. Brothers and sisters of the Inquisition, Ave Imperator. Horus did nothing wrong? Really? See you next time, guys.